Where started, are we starting?
It was.
Good morning everyone, how you doing?
All good.
Yay! Alright, so we're looking at the kingdom of Axiom. We've gone through a lot of different things at the moment. And then in regards to kingdom, we've gone to Kush. We've looked at the old golden age of Kush and Tarseti. Then we moved on to Kerma culture, then Napatan culture, and Meroitic culture. Then we went on to Egypt and we looked at the different dynasties, not all 30 of them, and looked at certain kings and the developments that came out of Egypt that laid the foundation for everything that exists today, it seems like. So we're moving on to Axiom. We'll look at certain kings, not today, like Zoskel, the Zana, and the classic King Lalibela. If you know about those 11 churches he built, those were classic churches. So let's, with no further ado, let's move on. So, Ethiopia and Eritrea is where our story begins. Ethiopia is famously known for a range of things, including its history, immersed in ancient Christianity, its unique 13-month calendar, the birthplace of the famous 3.2 million year old hominin named Lucy, that's Australopithecus afarensis, its coffee, and the chain it possesses. It claims that it possesses the Ark of the Covenant. People dispute that. If anyone knows what is held in the Ark of the Covenant, it's the 10 Commandments, so it's tablets. So they've got a church, they say the Ark of the Covenant's in there. It's protected and guarded, but people haven't been in there, but it's supposed to be there. So, and Eritrea holds notoriety for a number of things, including its exceptionally well-preserved 1930s Italian and Art Deco architecture, as you see over there. Some beautiful stuff. It's one party state, so there's never any elections there. It's beautiful untouched beaches and rich marine biodiversity, or just a lot of different fish. It's cultural cuisine and it's rich coffee. So I don't know if anyone's ever gone to Eritrea or Ethiopia. No, nor have I, but I'd like to go one day. So, however, Eritrea and Ethiopia's ancient civilization has been described by the 3rd century mystic and historian Mani as one of the 4 greatest civilizations of the ancient world. And not a lot of really a lot of people don't know about, especially in regards to people that don't know about black history. They don't know much about Axiomite history. So, the emergence of the great kingdom of Axiom. Come on, work it. All right, so the ancient civilization that Mani was referring to was the great East African kingdom of Axiom. Now, if you look, there's different spellings. So you'll come across different theorists with different spellings of that. That's the spelling I prefer to use. So, the 2 civilizations that influenced the development of Axiom. Located in Eritrea, the predating Axiomite kingdom was the land of Punt. Actually finding any information about the land of Punt is quite hard. There's not much historical evidence for much to do with its development. Not many records. Which emerged as far back as 3,500 BCE. Located in Ethiopia, please remember that. Land of Punt, Eritrea. Yeah, because there's going to be another part of Africa that's related to Axiomite civilization. Located in Ethiopia and emerging around 980 BCE was the civilization of DMT. For years I used to just call it DMT because I didn't know what it meant, but they call it, some people spell it different, D-A-M-A-T, Damat. Was a civilization of Damat which had influence upon the late Axiomite kingdom. So, land of Punt, Eritrea, and Damat, Ethiopia. Just try and keep hold of those in your head. So, the kingdom of Axiom, as you see, there's different spellings there. Also known as the kingdom of Axiom, or the Axiomite Empire, was an ancient kingdom centered in northern Ethiopia in the Tigray region, as well as what is now Eritrea. So, all around here, that's where Axiom was, just near the Horn of Africa. Come on. Right, so we're looking at pre-Axiomite era in regards to Eritrea. So, this area of Africa before the Aksumite Empire had become established. Commerce was an integral part of this region, and a lot of the time when you look at any of the ancient civilizations, whether it's the Kushites or the Egyptian or anywhere in Africa, trade was one of the biggest industries going on anywhere, and a lot of interaction between the Middle East and other areas. So Egyptians referred to this region as Ta-Net-Ja, or the land of Punt, meaning the land of the gods. In the first millennium BC, a large group of traders and settlers and farmers in search of fertile land boarded their boats and sailed from Saba, modern-day Yemen, across the Red Sea to Punt. So what will happen eventually is this cross-cultural interaction that enabled the civilization to develop in a certain manner. So, the ancient Egyptians had extensive economic ties to this region, dating back as far as 3,500 BC. And if you understand or look at ancient Egypt, they had interactions with lots of different people at lots of different times. They're always coming up with other civilizations and kingdoms. The Sabaeans and locals, so these are the people from Yemen, exchanged ideas and skills and shared knowledge about methods of cattle management. They developed new techniques of irrigation, enhancing crop yield. So we know from the from the Kushites and the Egyptians, especially with the River Nile, that agriculture was a big thing for those civilizations because they needed to eat. The region's climate, rainfall patterns and rich soil made it ideal for farming and herding livestock. So in addition to trade, the people had a secure agricultural base on which to build their civilization and prosper further. Over time, a port was established. So again, when you read different theorists, they'll spell Adulis or Adul as the port on the Red Sea that the Aksumite traded from. Located on the Red Sea, Adulis became one of the most important port cities in the ancient world. Over the ongoing years, the Sabaean language of the settlers mixed with the local tongue and gave rise to the new dialect named Ge'ez. And like I was saying in the previous lessons, that there was always this mythical notion that ancient blacks didn't write, and there was an oral tradition of passing down history. But as you see with Ethiopia and the Aksumite culture, Ge'ez was the main script that they used, which took place of the Kushite and Omotic languages evolving into modern Amharic and Tigray languages of today. So the development of language still has an essence of those ancient Ge'ez tongue. Archaeological excavation. So just like any investigation of ancient sites or ancient civilizations, just like with Kushites and Keith C. Seal's excavation in 1962 of near Aswan, it's always understanding the culture and the emergence of the civilization is based upon the findings. So, a significant amount of remains at Adulis requires excavations. They're still doing that now. However, Eritrean archaeologists are gradually uncovering its former glory. Exquisite glassware, beautiful pottery, bronze lamps, and other fine objects provide an insight into the civilization that is little known. So I think for me it's quite amazing that when you look back in history and look at the metallurgy when they were forming metal, or even working with gold or various metals, especially in West Africa with Benin, Oyo, etc. The level of craftsmanship seemed to be a lot deeper than, well, people thought that we was living in huts and all kinds of stuff, not developing anything. But there was a lot of serious craftsmanship going on. One of the most striking finds is a small phoenix. I haven't got a picture of that, dating back from the 800 BC, discovered in an area further west from Adulis called Adi Gramaten. It is made of limestone, and the Sabaean inscription under it refers to the sacrificial stone that accompanied it. The figure displays a head of a woman, that's the Sphinx we were talking about, and the body of a lion, and its style confirms connections with Kush and Kemet. So interactions were going on consistently with these civilizations. It was this early civilization, the land of Punt, that laid the foundations for Axiom in the 1st century CE. CE, Common Era or Christian Era. So, we know about the land of Punt, and we know its connection. So, the civilization of Damat was a short-lived kingdom emerging around the 10th century BC. So, really, it came a lot later, but it contributed to the further development of Axiomite culture later on. Located in northern Ethiopia, the best preserved remains of the fusion of local and Sabaean culture are found in Yeha, about 16 kilometers outside of the modern city of Axiom. The temple of Al-Maqwa stands in the Tigray region of Ethiopia and is the pride of the city of Yeha. Little is known about the people who built it. So even this structure, if you see it, I mean, you can see the scale of the structure compared to the land and how small people would be in comparison to that. So even erecting that, for me, I mean, the pyramids are one thing, but erecting these stone blocks or whatever is quite amazing. The people of Yeha included priests, soldiers, farmers and artisans. Excavations of Yeha and other sites such as Cat Caves and Watara included exquisite thrones, statues, altars and religious artifacts. And anytime you go back in time and there's a throne, that gives you an indication that there may have been kings or queens. Damat did not experience a violent or sudden collapse. It simply gradually fragmented into smaller regional kingdoms. So it didn't end under any violence, it just sort of dissipated. The rise from the 1st century to the 10th century. The rise of this great East African kingdom was a gradual process, and like the Kushites, the Axiomite kings grew rich and powerful, and like I said before, I talked about Hazana and Lalibela, etc., and those girls. From their control of the Red Sea, trade between Africa, India, Asia and Arabia, and their grip on crucial overland and maritime routes in the ancient world was made possible by their military might, which they exploited full to maximise the advantages of their strategic position. The Axiomites had great control over the critical Bab el-Mandeb Strait, connecting the Red Sea to the Persian Gulf and India, and traded through Malacca Strait, a gateway to Southeast and Eastern Asia. So there was a lot of trade going on. They were actually central. I mean, the Kushites had a lot of trade going on, but the Axiomites had a lot more trade going on, it seems like. The Axiomites also imported goods, artifacts and wine from the Mediterranean and China and from across the Indian Ocean, including wine goblets with hints of turquoise, vessels for oil, glassware, gold ornaments and fine jewellery. We're not going to go too much into Axiomite history today, only because we're going to have a discussion about what's going on at the moment in Ireland. The king would receive a vast amount of trade revenue. Ancient ruins of residences demonstrate there was large upper class and considerable wealth. Right, so trade, this is really our last slide till we get to some questions. The Axiomites conducted a significant amount of trade and it was plentiful and profitable. Conducting trade along the Red Sea, remember the Red Sea and the port Adulis, could be dangerous at times as pirates would try to seize ships carrying valuable imports and exports, including salt, gold, ivory, frankincense and myrrh. And the Egyptians loved a lot of incense, so they went there and got a lot of incense off them. The Axiomites patrolled both sides of the Red Sea to ward off attacks and pirates. To facilitate their international trade, the Axiomites made coins, and they were probably one of the first civilizations to mint their own coins. So, and it says it there, the Axiomite king Edibis was the first. Axiom was the first place in which Africa minted gold, silver, and copper coins. And there's still some coins rolling about in Ethiopia, and they've got some heads of kings, etc. on these coins. Now, a couple of questions. That went pretty quick. So, what two countries of Africa made up the Kingdom of Axiom?
Ethiopia, Eritrea.
Yes! What great learning's going on here today. What two civilizations influenced the development of Axiom?
Kenya.
What's your name?
The land of,
The Punt.
yes, the land of Punt, and the other one that's got very three letters.
DMT.
Yeah, DMT, or the Mat. What was the name of the people that came from modern day Yemen and mixed with the locals, influencing the culture of the land of Punt? Started with an S.
Sabine.
Yes, the Sabaeans. What did the land of Punt mean in Egyptian?
It's the land of the gods.
Land of the gods. The Sabaeans shared ideas with the locals regarding what? What did they come and sort of give them some knowledge about?
Agriculture. Trade.
Irrigation and some cattle stuff, cattle herding. What was the name of the port where a lot of trade took place?
Let's see.
It was on the Red Sea. What was the name of the port? It starts with an A. Adul or Adulis.
Okay.
The port of Adulis was located where?
Red Sea.
The Red Sea. And where was Damat located and where was Punt located?
Put Ethiopia, Eritrea.
Oh, that's. Go.
Yeah.
Say it.
Yeah, so Damat was Ethiopia and Punt was Eritrea. To facilitate their trade, what did the Axiomites produce?
Coins.
Coins. Well done. Right, so that's the end of that. But I'd like to talk about, in our discussion time, some racism and some other stuff. So, and I'll also be referring to some books, just to give you insight into some really good books that I really like, but sort of relevant to what's going on today. So, there's a lot going on today in Ireland. There was a man, a Sudanese man that stabbed a man. I think he injured the man's eye, and as a consequence of that, there's been days of rioting. People's houses have been smashed in, burnt down. And there's just a general feeling of sort of racial tension, I feel. I don't know, but I'm feeling it. I think there's a resurgence of sort of acts that were going on back in the day. So if we look from 19, and a lot of these riots, bar this one, was really work related. People upset about wages, because Asians and blacks, they felt were getting more money. I think this one was more related to the rota system in work. They even got upset about that. So the 1990 riots in Glasgow, because they were all race riots.
Yeah. What about the potato Irish with the famine?
Well, when did that take place? I know about it briefly.
Yeah.
When did that happen? In Ireland?
Over here.
Okay.
You
So
know?
these ones are the main ones that you might
Yeah.
highlight. So all of these, the British one in Liverpool and Cardiff, the Mill Dam riots in North Shields, not so well known, and the 1958 riots in Notting Hill. And in 1959, Kelso Cochrane got murdered, the Antiguan carpenter, and got stabbed up. So, right, so last week we talked about Henry Novak and what took place, and there seems to be a general escalation of racial tension as a consequence of these incidents. I'm mindful that young black people, when they get killed, the black community doesn't start protesting and they don't start rioting. apart from when Mark Duggan got killed. But again, when it comes to police brutality, on the odd occasion something can happen. But majority of the time, black people don't raise up and start protesting and inciting any sort of violence. So, on June 8, 2026, a 30-year-old Sudanese asylum seeker allegedly carried out a severe stabbing in North Belfast, leaving the victim with critical injuries to his face, neck and back. At least 2 major nights of violent rioting and several smaller gatherings have taken place across Northern Ireland following a severe stabbing incident in Belfast. I'm wondering how you feel about what's going on at the moment. And has anyone got anything to say about it?
I feel like they're looking for a reason to do it. I don't feel like they actually really care that the guy got stabbed. I think they just want a reason to, you know, let out their anger towards ethnic minorities.
Colin, what are you going to say?
It's very deep, very, very deep. When you look, as you mentioned early on, every time we have this, it's when we have a socio-economic problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, and every time we have a rich and poor gap,
Yeah.
the rich does this. Remember Enoch Power before that?
The Rivers of Blood speech.
All these, yes, remember, you know. We had so we're in a very, what is happening at the moment is that the rich is dividing us and the working class don't even know it. Yeah? Elon Musk became the first trillionaire yesterday. Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
He's the one who's inciting this violence. He's the one prior to the riots said, come out on the streets, barbarians, third world. You know, so you see what I mean? He incited, he was part of it with Nigel for us. So we have a thing now, and the climate I'm feeling is what I felt in the 70s, when we had a lot of racial tension with the National Front, and we had to defend ourselves. It was very scary because, you know, when they're together, they're very strong. But when you get them one-to-one, so they were like vigilantes looking out, and so this is what is happening at the moment. We're coming back to a situation because of the economic situation. They want to blame migrants for housing, jobs, health, national health service, everything that they having problems with. They want to blame the immigrants.
Yes.
Or migrants. But then when you look at it, they're the ones who cause it because they're the ones who went into other people's country and colonize. And you know, and now you want to bomb those countries and all these things. So people, the connection, that's why they're coming over here. That colonial connection that they have over here. So we're in a very, very, very serious time. And if you notice another thing, what is happening, all the equality and everything that protects us is being dismantled, right? Because they don't want to. If you look at things now, they talk about look at what's coming out. They will say, okay, we have to deal with white working class, gays, LGBTQ, which is fine. Nothing with race coming up anymore. If you notice that, race is not on the agenda with anything with it. You know, it's like disparities and everything we know about. They're wiping all that out now. You know, you know where we had disparities about black women in birth. You know, stop and search. We had idiot the other day on TV saying, yeah, we want to stop.
Kemi Badenoch.
Yeah, we want more black people to be searched. You know what I mean? So you see what is happening, and it's fueling fire. You know, so we are in a very, very dangerous time, and it's more dangerous than the 70s. It's very dangerous in the 70s because if it could happen in Ireland, it could happen up here. And where it's going to happen is where black people live in, and there's not much of them. Because growing up in Edmonton for 56 years, what has happened, the white people who didn't want to be mixed with black people, they move further down Harlow. And as they come in that area, they move in further. They don't want, and these are the people who will, you know what I mean, always have that, they don't want to mix. And so we're in a very difficult situation. What is that happening? And it's because of the economic situation.
Yeah.
So that is why.
I think, you know, Ireland, 1172, King Henry II. Let me take my spelling. Yeah. He was some self-styled monarch, that had an issue with the Irish. So what he wanted the Irish to do is adhere to British customs, etc. The ones that didn't, he exterminated them. So they got a long. It was really one of the earliest times that they had sort of British colonialism, where they took over Ireland and exterminated them. So, but for many people, especially what Colin's talking about from that era, you know, no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. There seemed to be a connection with the Irish people during that time because they were in the same boat, suffering similar sort of situations when it came to racism. So for some people that exist now, that came from Colin's era, they might be quite confused why the Irish are going on like that at the moment. But I think there's still got to be an understanding, like Nigel Farage, Tommy Robinson, Elon Musk, they're presenting a narrative to people that, especially when it comes to, Colin talked about laws anti-immigration, whether it's the Equalities Act 2010, the Race Relations Act 1965, the Race Relations Act 1968, etc. These acts have been put in place to protect people, but the emergence of critical race theory came about in America as a consequence of the Civil Rights Act coming out, but it's still doing nothing. So these acts have been implemented in law and supposed to operate to protect the rights of certain people, but still over here, when we look at the statistics that I might go through at some point, whether it's black people 3.5 times more likely to be sectioned, or black children are 10 times more likely to be subject to social care, or black women are 2 to 3 times more likely to die during childbirth, or black people are 7 times more likely to die through police restraint, or black people are 6 to 27 times more likely to get stopped by the police depending on the area. The laws aren't working. And like Colin said as well, the protective factors that are supposed to be there aren't working, and they're not talking about it. So race in general and racial issues seem to be a problem for black people along a continuum. I don't know if anyone thinks that as well, because I know that I was reading something on William Greer and 2 black psychologists, William Greer and Price Cobbs. They got their literatures about black rage. And I spoke to someone the other day about how I have that. I've got black rage in me, and I can only imagine if you come from Colin's generation, because Colin's generation, regardless of what's been going on with you during that time, it wouldn't have been good. You'd have faced serious inequality, you might have got chased out by skinheads, etc., etc. But what would have happened? Some of that, let alone transgenerational trauma. So you're already existing with some trauma in you already, but it's compounded by the acts in the 1950s, 60s and 70s, but then there's a resurgence of it. What happens then with this and your psychological well-being? I can only imagine reliving something again in 2026 will have a detrimental impact, especially from people from the Windrush generation that are older now.
I was 17 years old, and because I failed my exams, my mum says, "You're not academic bright. I think you should join the army because, you know, they're all about." And this was me in Northern Ireland, Belfast, where this is me, 17 years old, protecting the Protestant and Catholic because they were fighting, throwing petrol bombs at me, war happening, and I was there. I'm protecting this guy because he's the RUC, and my job is to protect him. Strange, isn't it? The same as a young black soldier, a lot of us was over there. And this is me, 17 years old. I had bottles, bombs, bricks, everything, twice snipers. And this is why you say, I'm a bit confused because I'm thinking, what the heck is all this? It's like everything's coming about. You know, one Irish person said to me, he said, "Why are you over here? You have the same problems we have." But it wasn't my choice, my mom. You know what I mean? I don't know what it was, true economic, you know, it was 4 of us, my mom was single, you know what I mean? So, this is it. You know, we used to be in a patrol with those Land Rovers, and we had bricks, petrol bombs thrown. So, you know, yeah.
So there's a guy called Frantz Fanon, and he talks about epidermal alienization. Now it's funny because I was talking with Marcella yesterday, the Czechoslovakian lady that comes here. He was talking about some racial issues, and I talked about Frantz Fanon. I said there's a difference between the inequalities that minority groups face and black people face, because you could be from Czechoslovakia, you could be from Bulgaria, you could be Afghanistani, Afghan, you could be anything, and you could be treated all right until you open your mouth. With us, we don't have to open our mouth. As soon as we step in the place and they see the colour of our skin, that's all. That epidermis, the skin colour, well, we're alienated based on that, just purely on our skin colour. We don't have to say anything, or we can say something. We can act nice, yeah, and we can be as jovial as the next person out there. But as soon as the skin colour is looked upon, there's a judgment, a bias, and a certain treatment that we suffer as a result of black people. I mean, there's we're going back to some times now, and I think as well, it was funny because I was going through this book the other day, and I read this book when I was in uni. It's a classic book. It was so good that I lost it, and then I went online to look for it, and I couldn't find it. They're selling brand new, they're selling it second hand, White Law by Paul Gordon. But we're going back to some times. I'm going to read a little bit, but I'm then going to go on to how we know the criminal justice system is unfair and there's serious inequalities in there. There was a study of 375, I think, lawyers, and 51% of them said that they'd seen discrimination by judges in the courthouse. So, you know, even police are 81% more likely to get reprimanded, or what was the word? Disciplined, compared to their white peers. So we know the criminal justice system has its own problems. But there was a case in Scotland, and it wasn't different across the whole of the UK. Whether you was in Scotland or England or Ireland, you could go to jail if you were gay. You wouldn't have had to do anything if you was black, and you could go to prison. But in Glasgow in 1981, Sheriff Francis Middleton sentencing a white man for unlawful sexual intercourse with a 13-year-old Asian girl. Said that under normal circumstances, he would have sent him to prison. But it was only fining him because girls mature much earlier in the East. So the nature of and the level of thinking back then isn't too dissimilar to now. If you hear the rhetoric of Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson and Elon Musk, I mean, Nigel Farage said after that incident with the Sudanese that we need to display some hard, cold rage. I don't know what that implies, but it implies something like go out there, and that's what we're seeing. So even in old history, and this isn't that old, this is from your time, Colin, there's a certain way of thinking that, and for me, what's been happening is that everything's been covered over with political correctness. People have wanted to talk out, about how they're feeling, but they've been restricted. They've been given the instruments now.
That's what I said to my wife this morning.
They've been given the instruments and the people to be able to vocalise how they're actually feeling. They've been shut up for too long. And vice versa. We was given that as black people through George Floyd's death. The muzzle came off our mouths and we were able to speak up. But the muzzle's been put back on now, and the muzzle's been taken off their mouths, and they're able to speak up about how they really feel. So I think we're in a very dodgy place. I think we're quite safe, even though me and the missus saw something a couple of weeks ago that was distressing. So we was going to the gym the other morning. It's about 3 weeks ago or so, isn't it? So there was she must have been Muslim, had all the hijab or whatever on, because I don't know what that is. I don't know the names properly. So we was near Lidl. Aldi, and we was walking through the car park of Tottenham, and some white guy that looked proper Tommy Robinson, skinny guy, was walking past. Did he say bitch to her?
Yes.
Yeah? So, must have looked, but for no reason. You know, like, it's early morning, it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. Like, starting up some abuse. Me and the missus started talking, I said, this was back in the day, I might have had to say something, but it might have turned into something, you know what I mean? But even though I feel there are protections based on the interrelative sort of the interrelations between black, white, etc. in Tottenham, Hackney, Brixton, whatever, there's still fractions of white people that are listening to the narratives and feeling certain feelings and would like to rise up, maybe in Tottenham or wherever, you know, if they had the chance.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I feel it. I feel something is coming if it's continuing.
But I think you've got to start looking about how all this started. If we look at racism, how did racism start? How do you think racism started?
Through colonial, we didn't have that.
Colonialism?
Yeah.
There was a guy called Gomez. It's funny because there's only one person that really talks about that. I hope I spelled this right. My spelling is dodgy. Gomez de Zerara, 14th century chronicler for the Portuguese, for King Henry the Navigator, the man that's really associated with starting off the transatlantic slave trade. So he was a chronicler back then that was writing up stuff about the Africans that they were starting to enslave. But a lot of the stuff that he was writing up was quite derogatory. So that Ibrahim Kendi in his book, what's the name of the book again? How to be an anti-racist. Yeah, in that book he makes reference to Gomez de Zerara. No one really talks about him until Ibrahim Kendi started talking about him in his book. So they say that he might have been a proponent of racism, starting it off. But then, later on, we had these crazy pseudo-scientific thinkers, these people that are very influential in the world of science, yeah? So, and it was nonsense actually. So you had Carl Linnaeus, how do you spell Johann? Johann Blumenbach, and then you had this guy here. Right, George Hegel. For me, he's one of the most dangerous. So remember, this was in a period of enlightenment. In the 1700s, there was these really deep thinkers emerging, whether it was, you're thinking about Karl Marx, Durkheim, whoever, yeah, all these sociological thinkers and these scientific thinkers. Now, that taxonomy that was created by Carl Linnaeus and Johann Blumenbach, putting the Europeans at the top and Africans or blacks at the bottom, there's an N in there somewhere, yeah, started this level of thinking about who was more intelligent and who was closer to apes and needed civilizing, etc. But George Hegel, who was a very, very influential thinker, had this idea about freedoms, and that for people to become their sort of true selves, they had to establish a sense of freedom. But Africans couldn't establish that because they were childlike, and one of the vehicles for them to establish an understanding of how to becoming free, what do you think it was? What was that instrument that would help them learn how to become free?
Religion.
Slavery.
Oh.
Yeah. So through slavery, African people could learn how to become free. But he was a thinker that everyone, well, these two as well, but he was a main guy. So imagine that spreads worldwide. Imagine these scientific thinkers, and then you had people like Francis Galton and the eugenics movement that wanted racial purity, and then we, in the same way that we had Hitler going on. So all these scientific thinkers, these wannabe, because they were pseudo-scientists, because nothing was really real about their scientific thinking, spread that out across the globe. So everyone started thinking, all right, that black people are dumb and unintelligent. Then you had I hope I spelled these things right. Then you had people like Enid Blyton, who wrote books like Noddy. Yeah. So imagine already, if we're talking psychological, I'll talk about the paranoid schizoid position, or the topic, the structural model of the mind, and the id, the ego, and the super ego. Now this is like your parent. Yeah, this part of your mind from Freudian perspective is like your parent talking to you. This is the wild part of you, your sexual desire. And this is the mediating force between both that keeps you quite stable. Now, I'm going to get somewhere with this. So imagine now you're reading children's books to you're reading these children's books to your child in a white household, and Enid Blyton, no, she didn't do that, she done 10 Little Niggers. Yeah, sorry about that. So that was Enid Blyton's book, 10 Little Niggers. But whoever wrote Noddy, I can't remember who wrote Noddy. Anyway, Noddy had, I can't even draw a gollywog. Yeah? I don't know if anyone's seen a gollywog that used to be on the side of the jam jar. Now, you're reading this children's book. There's this sort of depiction of a character that's black that beats up and robs Noddy. Now, remember I said about the super ego. So you're reading this book, but what are you passing down in your expression of whatever into your child's super ego about black people? Whether it's Little House on the Prairie, or whether it was literature like of Mice and Men. All these racist literature would have an impact on those children. So first we've got pseudo-scientific thinkers, we've got children's books and literature, then we've got depictions all over the place, like, I don't know if anyone's seen the Pears soap poster where they got the black child that goes in the bath from the neck down, and then when it stands up in the next picture, it's all nice and white at the bottom. So even in advertising, they had boot polish, the colour. What do you think the colour was on the boot polish written on it? Nigger brown. So there was all kinds of advertising, pseudoscientific thinkers that contributed wholly to presenting a narrative, let alone the sort of use of the Bible and the story of Ham to validate black enslavement that was part that spread across the world, and people, white and black. For white people, there was a development of a sense of self that was superior, and for black people, a sense of self that was inferior. And then we get into a situation where we exist in colonial life, and then we have to adapt and be like W.E.B. Du Bois and Amos N. Wilson and others talk about, as much as we're black, we still want to be white and we still act white. You know, many of us don't have a traditional language that we speak that would have come from our foremothers and forefathers. A lot of African people have, and they've maintained some sense of culture, but there's a lot of black people out there, especially from the Caribbean, especially when there are Taino and other original people from Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, etc. They were massacred. So even though they've got traditional dress and things like carnival and some food, but even the food, a lot of the food, slave food. Condensed milk was the nasty bit of milk that they gave us. Saltfish was preserved on slave ships, that's why they salted the fish. So it's more so in American culture with their soul food, even cow foot and all that. We eat these slave food bits that people don't recognise are really slave food. So the emergence of racism itself is quite deep, but its continuation of it through law, people don't understand, aren't looking at it under a microscope so much, and feeling sometimes that they're existing okay, when we're really, I feel we're not existing okay. You can be in that coon zone, like Kemi Badenoch, and say things and feel alright, and then it falls in line with what W.E.B. Du Bois says about this veil and this double consciousness of trying to exist as black and white. Now, when I read W.E.B. Du Bois and I look at Kemi Badenoch, being middle class white, you start compromising your identity. Yeah, so you don't know how to be black in a certain arena.
She knows. She knows what she's doing.
Well, I don't think she does that much.
For living in, she lived in Nigeria. She knows everything.
Yeah, she's turned white.
But
she doesn't care about it. If you're on the TV saying that there should be more stop and search, you nearly wholly integrated into a way of thinking that you're whole. Imagine she sent the stage. Yeah. She doesn't even matter about that.
She's doing it to fit in.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But she's gone to, because of that double consciousness. So, imagine now, as a person that's working class, yeah, I can express my black identity easily. I can go to Neville and blah, 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 and everyone accept me. But once I start moving up at the ranks, it's like me when I was an assistant head teacher. I could have fitted into there excellently. The missus knows, I used to roll around in the staff room with the staff. I didn't segregate myself like the rest of the SLT members from who they considered were lower than them in this hierarchy, because I was still me. Yeah, and I'm not pushing into that middle class zone to be accepted, yeah, or to operate in the way they did. So like you said, it's true, but then afterwards you start losing your identity to the extent where you think you're accepted in that arena, and that they're going to treat you
that's
like
it.
How they treat others. But I've seen Kemi Badenoch get backed down in the House of Commons by Keir Starmer one time when she spoke up about
Yeah.
something, and he
Yeah.
put her in her place.
Yeah.
But it's, I think, to be able to show and demonstrate your blackness, especially at middle class level, in the workplace, with your peers, it's hard. That's why some people at working class level will say to other people, "You're acting white."
Coconut.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I think for what's going on now, even like when I was talking to my mum said to me this morning, there's only 2 Asian people that live in this block. My mum's worried. As a woman that's Asian, she's worried about what's, being out on the street or whatever.
Come
So-
back again.
Yeah.
The 70s. You see, in the 70s, it doesn't matter whether Asian, as long as you have melanin, that was it, man. You know what I mean? And suddenly it separated in the 90s when they said, okay, we're not black. Everyone was black in growing up, but it came to the reason we then become more different ethnic, because we all had the same situation. It doesn't matter whether you're Asian or African, Caribbean or whatever, you could be targeted. You know what I mean? Especially when we had those Asians that came from Uganda.
Yeah.
That was a heavy time, you know what I mean? But we all came together.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened, why we, became this, well, no, we're not black, you know what I mean? We're Asian, and all these things start happening, It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering how people feel, especially you, because you've gone through a timeline of it.
Yeah.
What would have contributed to the fragmentation of black unity and black community, because it's smashed apart now. I've got my own ideas.
Yeah, because there was a mosque it's still there, in Porter's End, and the Muslims used to ask us to protect them, take them to the mosque. We used to take them to the mosque, and and support them, because we all sort of unity, we all were calling each other brothers. But suddenly, I don't know what happened, it just, you see what I mean? Everyone in their own different way, but we all worked there, it was one common goal.
I'm wondering how everyone's feeling nowadays. Everyone feeling all right walking the streets of Britain?
I think we as the Caribbean, we have this narrative, if we fit in, if we adopt their culture, the racism would not be as we become part of this, of this society and be acceptable, yeah? And that's why a lot of us fought in the wars, yeah? We thought, well, when we come back, we're going to be we're going to be equal, because some of us died, that didn't take place. So my mom, when I came over here from Guyana, I had a Guyanese accent. You know what my mom did? She says, "No, you're going to lose this to fit in." She went 6 months elocution lessons, to speak good English. After 6 months, she realized, she said, I'm wasting my money. You still speaking raw Guyanese. You see what I mean? That's my parents' mentality, trying to feel we're going to fit in.
Just on the back of what Colin's saying, I sometimes think that, through colonisation, as a people, we aspire to a level of success that is not natural for us. So the level of success that a lot of people are trying to reach is a European level of success. We weren't made for the same level of success, so we will never succeed in these environments and in these countries. Because of colonisation, we were we're tricked into thinking, okay, you know, you come to these countries, you work hard, you're going to have a big house, you're going to be as successful as the white man and the white family. But it's a trick. We're never going to get to that level of success that's advertised and popularised. And I think once we understand that our level of success is not a European level of success, however that may look, you know, we don't know because we haven't seen it, because in our heads, in our collective minds, it's, you know, you have to be successful in America or England and get a job and get a pension and have all of these things. But what if that is not for us? You know? And I think it's difficult to be who you are in a society that will never be for us. You know? So regardless of the conversations that we're having and the efforts that we make and the books that are published and all this historical work, until we're in our environment, how can we succeed here? You know? We're in the UK and, you know, education is free here. But the people that are going on these marches, some of the clips that I've seen, they're the most uneducated bunch of weirdos ever.
That they can't
You
get
know?
the jobs, but they're not qualified to even have the jobs that they're worried about. So.
And they don't understand that their strings are being pulled, you know? Who they should be angry at is the elitists of this country. It's for me, it's a basic level of understanding of education that they don't have. Why do you not see all these white middle class people ransacking and killing and pillaging? No.
And I think that's that sort of emphasises the slave system that we exist in. Yeah. So just in the same way that we were slaves from the 1400s, we still exist, and I've said it before, the transition from slave labour to wage labour hasn't changed. The only people that can really move up the ranks are the house Negroes, like Kenny Badenoch. The field ones still stay in their position and work the daily jobs and get low pay and get exploited through capitalism. They're tied into the land, that's the mortgage, and having the house. You can't leave your employment most of the time because you're tied into it. Yeah, so the slave colonial system still exists, and you're like Deborah said, you'll never reach to a certain level. You can a bit more if you're working in the house, like Kenny Badenoch. If you're working in the field like us, we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, that's so true, because when we was in the army, we had to group together. Because when we grouped together, we were strong, you know what I mean? And I said, we worked together, like when I says, all the black soldiers from the Caribbean and from Africa, we used to all group together, like sit on the same level, we move, and no one wouldn't touch us because of there were one or two black soldiers wouldn't even talk to you. They had their white friends and they come and you say hi, No. You see what I mean? And we still get it. When I was young, I went to work and I see someone high in position in the office, say hi, they look at you because they don't talk to me. I'm not on that. Yeah.
So it's
strange. Then you have to behave in a different way. When you go into work, you got to go, all right, Joe.
And that code switching can become very uncomfortable. When you're code switching on a regular basis, and now I had a conversation with someone a while back. They said they don't code switch, and I said to them, it's difficult not be your authentic self. It's hard to be your authentic self in a workplace. When especially as you reach up the higher levels. Kenny Badenoch, and I've seen it. It happened with our mate that we had a picture with his MBE. Once he started moving up, he started assimilating into that realm, and then suddenly you become less black. Your identity changes because you aspire to what Deborah talks about, this European standard, and then your black identity starts eroding.
Yeah, and only that, when you get those who break through the ceiling, it's like say, well, I made it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I don't say anything. What the guy name is? Something Swell or whatever, talking about white. He did a report and he says there's no racism, it's all different.
Is it Sewell? Something Sewell? Yeah, yeah. I know him.
He put his
I don't know
he
him.
put his back because you know what I mean. So we are very, and what it is at the moment, I can tell you, we don't have any spokesperson. All our spokesperson are not here with us anymore. We don't have, and this is where the Jewish, they have, when they burn the ambulance, when they got killed, you always come on telly, they have their spokespeople. Even the Prime Minister saying, we have to change the law. We have to do this. We have to put more money in a private security. They got their own private security, You see what I mean?
Mm.
But when it comes to us, you notice, we don't have all our spokespeople who used to, like Bernie Grant, Darkus Howe, and all those, who used to speak up. The black politicians aren't speaking up much. You notice?
I mean,
no one's coming on the air and
Yeah.
saying, hang on, this isn't right,
Yeah, people are looking to protect their position though. People like Darkus Howe and Bernie Grant didn't care. They were like true political revolutionaries.
Police got
Yeah.
good hiding.
Yeah, so regardless of what was going on, they speak up. Now, if you speak up now, they're taking off social media, you're losing your position. Colonialism, capitalism and consumerism are strong. Yeah. People don't want to lose their spot nowadays. So because I think to myself, all right, you've got people like Akala. Why haven't we heard nothing from Akala? I ain't heard nothing from Akala. You got David Olusoga, you got Robin Walker, you got these top academic thinkers that I'm not hearing anything from at the moment about anything.
And why don't you say so much? That's why.
So it is. Mr. K, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm alright.
Yeah.
This is my daughter, Bobby, Aisha, my Mrs. Deborah, Colin,
This with you.
top rapper, creative guy, Neville. That's Mr. K, he's a young man that. Was it army stuff you was doing for a little while as well?
Oh, when I said little while, like,
Yeah.
I didn't even go. I couldn't go.
But you finished your degree now?
Yeah, I finished it.
Lovely.
Man.
Yeah, but he's a young man, very positive young man that reads some good black history stuff as well. So I invited him down, and I'm glad he came.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know what else to say about the situation. I think we're gonna see a lot more. I think this phenomenon may spread worldwide. This anti-blackness, anti-minority. We know America's at the forefront of a lot of that already, but it's sort of like the pandemic a little bit. It can become like the pandemic.
Yeah. I think what's going to happen, we're going to come strong. I feel positive about it. We only come strong when we really reach our back against the wall. We didn't, you know what I mean? So now, you know what I mean? It's going to come.
Go on now. That's all that. Go on.
Yeah, I don't think we're coming strong at all.
No?
No, we've never. Put it this way, there's so much to say, man. One, every single person that had a voice for us across the decades, across time, there's two things that's happened to them, and both deal with assassination. It's assassination of the flesh or assassination of character.
Mm.
So this is something that is been planned and orchestrated.
Big time.
Right?
Big time.
So there's that. When it comes to this, when we're dealing with Ireland, the situation there, it's not really different to other places across the planet. Even sometimes I'm thinking, is this actually being orchestrated on purpose? Is there agendas? Because sometimes they show you things and do things to have trickle effects.
Mm.
So what I'm trying to say is, if you go into the history of Ireland and all of that, the Irish was put on slave boats with us. When if you go to the Caribbean, there's Irish communities that are still there. They were there. Yeah, I'm trying to say to you. So
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say to you, I don't understand, because I don't really know what's going on. Because I've been kind of just whatever. But the little bits that I'm getting doesn't make sense. And if we're going to look at, it's like I said in one of my lyrics in one of my songs, us as Africans, we don't have no friends anywhere. And that's not even, that's not a quotation from myself, that's something I've got from Henry Clark. Us as Africans, we don't have friends anywhere. Look at things like the situation in Gaza and the Palestinians. Terrible situation. But even while they're going through the madness that they're going through, they still call us, when you see the black people out there, the Palestinians will be calling us, I can't remember the name, I should always write these things down, but they call us a racial slur. And I'm thinking, where are you getting
Doesn't it mean slave?
Yes.
Slave.
And I'm saying to yourself, how are you going through all of this trauma, this chaos, this genocide, but still have the time to turn around and say, "Yo." Right? And then when you go into like, I can't remember what World War it was. There was a World War, and I remember, I can't remember what size. Please don't, I'm not saying that this is a fact, but I remember reading where when they had like the mess halls where they eat, so they've got their captured. I think it was in the Germans and the French. I can't remember who it was, but even in the mess halls, they could find solidarity between them as enemies, where they could allow them to eat in the same mess hall with them, but the black person that was fighting alongside them wasn't allowed to eat in their mess hall. So even in their conflict, their war, their murder, they had a bond while they didn't have a bond with us. So I'm saying all of this to say this, when we're there waiting for spokesmen and for people to do things, we're still under the same acts of acceptance and this is me thinking of it psychologically, because to actually get yourself free, because really what's freedom, but to get yourself free and to make moves and stuff, it takes physicality, it takes movement, it takes action. And if I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of black people don't really want to be making the action or to put in the real effort, because it takes effort, it takes vigor, it takes strength to create freedom, whether that's mentally, physically, whatever. And I personally just think we're just in a situation of just like lemmings, we're just sitting down and, oh, he's doing that, oh, let me follow him, oh, they're reading it. No one's really trying to put in the hard work. So again, when it comes to the stuff that's all going on, I just think, what's this is like a smoke screen to me. It's smoke and mirrors. What's coming behind this? What's the agendas? Because as we've mentioned certain names that are involved, people that have major collateral. Once you've got the funds to do things, you can make things happen. Forget talking out. If you've got Elon Musk money, you can make things pop. Do you see what I'm saying? So what's happening behind this? Because let's keep it real. This is the last thing I want to say, because last thing I want to say. When it comes to this, was there like an influx of a lot of coloured people attacking Irish people? Was that a lead up to this, or was it just the one stabbing that's led to what we're seeing and hearing now? Because if that's the case, then you know that there's a script behind it. It's not like where they're saying, "Rah, this is like the 15th stabbing that we've had in the last 3 to 4 months." We're not having it. If it's just the one and then bam, it's exploded, there's an underbelly to it, and it's a designers to it. It's
And then why are they attacking women and children? You know, you've got women that are scared to leave their homes and go to work because they're black or they're Asian.
And only that, they're care workers and so. What I'm saying is that when I mentioned when I was back against the wall, I remember 1981 when we had enough with the SOS law. Yeah. We came out and we burned a few. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
That's like the New Cross fire as well. The New Cross
we
fire
had enough.
Came out.
Yeah, we had enough because we said no. This is we can't live this way. Every minute being really stopped. I've been stopped. You know, in that area as well. And we said no. From there, okay, we White Claw. You know, he was the Home Secretary to come with all this report, and a guy named Lord Scarman came in and wrote, yeah, about, you know what I mean? We had enough. So I don't know, that's what I meant.
I'm optimistic, you know. I think when I went to the first Black Lives Matter march in Westminster, the other one was a sham, the one in Ladbroke Grove or wherever. It's supposed to be 1 million people, and there was about 300 of us marching. But the first one in Westminster, I saw a resurgence of neo-Black Pantherism. Yeah, I saw young people at that march that were speaking hard, yeah, up against inequality and whatever. So I know, just like the people you're talking about from back in the day that had that fight in them to fight oppression and inequality, there's young people out there that have got that. But it's whether, you know, whether they're locked in to the capitalist consumerist bit, and that's more important than moving forward with an agenda of revolution, you know. So because it's a very clever game they've played, and like you said, Nev, you know, they can have that as a distraction, while next minute they're cutting all benefits, or the healthcare system and there's no more national health. So sometimes they'll prime you, with some other distractionary tactic, and then next minute, before you know it, you can't go to the doctor without paying money, and you're like, right, when this happened? Because I was thinking about that all that time. So only time will tell, but regardless of that, even if that is a tactic, it's creating something for us on the ground anyway.
Last thing I'll say is just this little sprinkle, yeah? You've got to remember that the same people that are behind the brim, this is just my outlook on it, they control both sides. So if you can control someone through fear, in the sense, if you do this and do that, it also creates a pathway for you how to live your life and decisions you make, and also on the other extreme too. Do you know what I mean? So I always come back to this one word. The only word that I come back to for myself when it comes to anything that I'm doing in my life is accountability. Yeah, because a lot of people want to turn a blind eye or go on like they don't know, but you know, whatever you do or how you're going to perceive the world it's going to be your reality, your perception. So you have to kind of create your own pathways and your own ways of how you're going to maneuver through this mess, and then you deliver outcomes. So.
And plus, you know, it's like social learning theory. There's in the in-group and out-group. People want to be in the in-group, yeah? They don't want to be with the out-group. So white people, regardless of their cultural appropriation and loving blackness in whatever capacity, they see themselves as the in-group and not the out-group. And black people have always resided in the out-group. You know what I mean? As long so, and black people as well want to be in the in-group through colonialism. So that's why you got Kemi Badnock and the rest of the coons existing in the way. So it's hard to exist when there's this divide where people want to be wholly immersed in something, and it's hard for them to reside in a place that basically was their origins. But there's a new, it's been created, that in-group been created through colonialism. Whiteness is the thing, white beauty, white whatever, you know what I mean? So it's hard for people, especially youngsters, to fight against that nowadays because they've been mesmerised through goods and money.
Exactly. But I have to bring it back full thing to what you're doing, because what was I watching the other day? They was trying to say, like, we know this is foolishness, but they was trying to say, like, obviously man and existence and all that only existed, it goes back to like maybe 6,000 years. So obviously they're trying to pick a narrative of them coming forward and establishing whatever.
Yeah.
And like with what you're doing and presenting, obviously it's showing that it's spanning back way before that. And who was the pre-people you came and brought civilization and sciences and mathematics and all that to the planet. That's very important.
Yeah.
You know.
But what makes me laugh is that this pen is messed up. You know, all right. And I was saying it to the missus the other day. We used to be very clean. We're clean. We washed. We built spas. We built baths. They said that we didn't. Yeah, they smashed up our shit. They want to say that we was uncivilized and we needed civilizing through the colonizers. But it was them that was uncivilized. They're still uncivilized, you know. And even with the lack of intelligence, it was us that had the intelligence. But they promoted it like we didn't have the intelligence. But it continues now with the behaviours that they're demonstrating out there, still reinforcing the fact that they're dumb as shit. But they keep on saying that about us. So it's pretty weird, the repackaging of everything, you know what I mean?